So they're living in this place being prepared. At nights, they would take them and they would use these things called mental inhibitors. So they would inhibit their mental powers so that they couldn't use them at night. Jason is curious. It just seems weird. He doesn't like this world. All we do is read. We need to be somewhere else on the outside world. You know, there's more out there. Sam, the one who kind of can see a little bit, doesn't really care. He's like, look, we got a place to live. It's not a big deal. I don't care as long as we're pampered, taken care of. Why should we worry? You know, let's just increase our powers and see what happens. Tiffany and Chelsea are a little different. They're a little more concerned with, well, in my books that I read, it seems like helping people is good, so why don't we do that? Chelsea is a little bit older than Tiffany. Tiffany is the youngest, and she looks like the youngest. You know, kind of longer hair, more of a childish face. She's the youngest of the group. There's a security guard named, they call him Dragon because he has a dragon tattoo right here. Now, the security guard Dragon is in charge of watching them as they sleep. He goes through and does a pass of different halls to where they sleep at. Now they sleep with these inhibitors, except for the telekinetic. He actually sleeps with a very, almost like a coma-inducing syringe in his arm that keeps him under because his powers are spiking. He was so powerful. So he watches them. In the middle of the night, he would just sneak into Tiffany's room and the scene would cut from there and it would go back to the morning. And as Tiffany got older, she got more and more reserved, more quiet, where she wasn't talking as much, and he was raping Tiffany. Because of the inhibitors he has, he can turn her powers off and there's nothing she can do about it. So that morning, Tiffany was asked by Chelsea, what's the matter? And Chelsea says, you know, like you're different, you're not focusing as well in our exercises, what's wrong? So finally she breaks down and tells her. Well, Chelsea goes and tells everyone else. So everyone else tells the professor, who doesn't really give it a lot of thought because, hey, you're just weapons anyway. A few nights later, it happens again. Jason gets upset and he tells the doctor, and doctors don't believe him. Listen, it's not happening, it's fine. She's not being raped, it's fine, don't worry about it. They don't really care. They just need them to be controlled and ready for World War III. So that night, as they're sleeping, Jason, who sleeps in his chamber, is laying there, and they notice, people who monitor them as they sleep, security's walking through, they notice a spike in his power. And they say, whoa, while he's sleeping, why is his power spiking? The needle that's in his arm flies out, and it just comes right out of his arm. And the straps come off of him, and the chamber opens up. All telekinetically he does this, and his eyes just open. So they run down there, hey, Jason, go back in there, we don't know why you need to go back to sleep. With a scowl on his face, just walks straight towards them, and the doors fly open and crumble like foil on the ceilings. Just rip apart. He walks through, and the guard, they say, hey, Jason, just stay, go back in your chair. They fly up to the ceiling. They crumble too. I mean, he literally rips them like foil on the ceiling, almost where they're like crushing up and screaming, and they crush into the ceiling. And he just walks through the chamber, walks out, and leaves, and their bodies hit the floor. And he gets to Sam's room finally. So he rips Sam's door open. I mean, at this point, they've never measured his power being this high. For some reason, it spiked. Okay? Takes the inhibitor off Sam, crushes it. Sam gets up, and he's like, what are you doing here? And he said, we're going to get Tiffany. And he said, it's about time. So they run out, and he's like, all right, this is what we do. We have to, right in the side of the head, he gets a dart. Jason goes down, falls on the floor. You see the dart kind of empty into his head, and he passes out. Sam turns around. The dart comes right at Sam, and right as it comes out, the dart disappears, fades, and it moves right back. And he says, hey, what are you doing here? We have to go get Tiffany. He said, it's about time. Wait, don't go out the door. And right when he does, the dart flies by and hits the door. So he says, put a force field up that way. And he puts a force field up. They walk out, and the darts pretty much stop right midair as they're walking down the hall. So they're walking. They finally get in there. He said, hey, where's Tiffany's room? Okay, it's on the other side of the facility. Okay, go get Sahir here first. So he says, no, don't separate. We have to stay together. Let's go. So they move over to Sahir's room, rip the door off. They take him out. Same thing happens throughout the facility. They're moving place to piece, getting everybody. The professor sitting there in his room looking at what's happened. He's kind of watching the monitor, and he's just watching. At this point, alarms are going off. Everybody, okay, we got to get him back in there. And he's just watching. And then a couple more doctors walk in. They sit down. They watch as well. And they're all just watching. So he walks through. They're walking through. They finally get to Tiffany's room, which is double occupied, by the way. They go in there, and he rips the door off, and they're just standing there. Dragon standing there with his shirt off. Says, "What are you doing? Get back in your room." The telekinetic pushes him to the wall and says, "Let's go." Tiffany, getting dressed, gets okay. They run over there and he says, "What do you want to do with him?" Now, for a lot of leisure exercise, they would have things like pools and things like that. Well, they had one pool in the middle of the grounds that had almost like a shield over it that closed at night and covered it over. So Tiffany turns back around and walks towards him as the guard is standing there completely frozen against the wall because he can't move. She holds his face and then teleports and is gone. And then comes right back, soaking wet, and then says, "Let's go." So they leave. At that point, it cuts back to that pool with just the guard under there tapping on the window. No one knows he's in there because everyone's focusing on the breakout. They never notice the guard who's in there, who inevitably drowns in the pool. They get outside to the facility and they're walking. They're going straight towards the almost like the hangar. And they said, "Hey, we're going to take a car, a helicopter, whatever we can, and get out of here. We're leaving right now." They shoot the field with this like bazooka-like cannon, and at that point you see Jason kind of do like it really hurts his head to feel it. And he just kind of stops, and a couple of drops of blood fall from his nose as he looks to the side. And at that point, people are starting to panic, like, "Oh my gosh." He looks to the side, and he just looks at this like machine that's like a little smaller than a tank, but kind of the same kind of design. And he just reaches out, and he lifts the tank up off of the ground, which really causes the professor, the doctor, to lean back and look at it. And as he does, he rips the tank. Just breaks it in about 12 different pieces in half, with the man inside of it just kind of floating there. And then he just squeezes it together, and everything crushes together like foil, crushing the man inside of it and just crushing the whole thing into a ball, and it drops on the ground. And at that point, they look to the left, and you hear like a shotgun go like that. And they look to the side, and the guy with the shotgun just looks at the tank and puts the gun down, and then thinks twice. And then Sam says, "Good choice." And at that point, they continue walking on. They go to the hangar. Force field starts to weaken because the inhibitors are getting closer. So they're walking out, and they go out into this dome, this clear dome, and at that point you notice all these pods, and they look up and they see stars, and they're like, "Where are these stars? Like, what is this?" So they're like, "Okay, everybody get out. Let's just go. We got to get out, get in the pods." So they jump, they go to the pods, and then they start coming. At that point, they shoot inhibitors at the field. It hits the field like these little balls that actually they light up and turn into inhibitors, and they start just cutting everybody's power out. So Jason falls to the ground, and he's like, "Oh, my head," and he can't control it. The force field goes off. At that point, they just unload as many tranquilizers as they can. And Tiffany, who doesn't really teleport out of there, is just kind of teleporting in one spot, moving as the darts come. And because she's not actually in a physical position, the darts are even going through her a little bit. Sayer gets hit with one, goes down, stands back up. Sam is like looking over. He's like, "All right, look, if we got to go back." Boom, gets hit one right in the side of the temple and goes down. At this point, they run in, shackle him, and then it kind of almost in a rewind look, like rewinds back. They go through the door again, and this looks like a hangar, and Sam was standing there, and he goes, "All right, hold on. Okay, they're coming, they're using inhibitors, and we have to do such and such. Okay, so Chelsea and Josiah break off. They say, "Go get in the pods, get out of here, run, leave, get out of here." Now, unbeknownst to them, the pods, once they go, there's a time difference between how fast each pod follows each other. Chelsea and Josiah get into one of the pods, and they're like, "How do we work it? I don't know." David Vulcan runs up, and who they affectionately call Vulcan because they just liked his last name. So we'll say Vulcan runs up. He runs up, grabs the machine, and says, "Okay, I'll set it for you." Sets it, and he's like, "All right, it's already preset to go to base 2. Time getting there, 4 hours and 8 minutes. Destination, Earth." So they're like, what? That doesn't make any sense. So they jump in the pod, take off.